Let me just wrap my head around Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza, Lollapalooza, Lollapalooza. Guys, welcome to the final episode of season 2. It feels weird saying it's like a season 2, but we're doing it. This is a real series. If you haven't watched the rest of the series, we've gone through a lot already. We did the Takeaway music video. We did the behind the scenes of a Tiesto music video I did a few years back. Make sure to see that one. We broke down the workshop that I run with Jacob in Bali, San Francisco. We ran through the Khalid at Coachella episode, and we also talked about my Snapchat original series that I did back in 2017 and what it was like to work with a big company like Snapchat. So check out season 2, check out season 1. Thank you for everyone who's been watching every episode. I see all your comments, I see your DMs, and I really, really appreciate it. A lot of you have come from Instagram, and a lot of you are also just stumbling upon this and then coming to check out my Instagram. So I'm stoked for what this is creating in the community and ready to continue this. Lollapalooza, Chainsmokers. So I've been working with them for a couple of years, obviously, and they asked me if I could do Lollapalooza with them this year. And it was really important that I was there because Lollapalooza was so big. It's such a big deal for them just because it's a huge stage, a huge audience, a massive festival here in America. Not only that, but they were bringing out 9 featured artists. Basically, mostly all the feature artists that they've ever worked with were gonna come out and perform live with the songs that they collaborated with them on. So that was really exciting. I was at the time in Europe and I was supposed to be going with Douchebags on a trip in France, and that was on the conflict of it, so I had to choose one or the other. And I ended up choosing the Lollapalooza one because I value loyalty and relationships, and I've been working with the Chainsmokers a lot, and they looked me in the face and said, we really need you on this one, and we're bringing everybody. It's not like they could have just handed it off to another videographer to kind of like come on. They wanted every resource they had there. So that's kind of how it came about, and I made it happen. So this episode, we had a lot of different stuff that you wouldn't typically see in one of my edits, and it's all things I've wanted to do before, but it's really, really hard to do in the music scene, in the touring music scene, because you have to turn around and edit so fast. You're sort of restricted budgets, and you're only one guy typically that's being hired. And on this one, it was a lot different because we had Spencer Miller out there, who's an incredible editor. You guys definitely have to check out his work. He's the person that I actually collaborated with this video on as far as the edit goes. And I knew that he had a lot of strengths that I didn't have. And by knowing that he was gonna take care of those, it gave me peace of mind to really focus in on what I was good at and just really, really go in on the edit. So that's kind of what made this whole video different, was that there was multiple people working on it. We also looped in a videographer named Jar. He's an awesome guy. Met him that night, and I just hit up Spencer if he knew anybody that was at the festival. We just asked him if he would help shoot it. We gave him a pass to shoot the stage because there was like a no photographer policy or videographer policy unless you were working with the Chainsmokers. And so we gave him one of those passes, and he just shot from the pit, which was super valuable at the time because I was gonna stay on stage, Spencer was gonna stay in the crowd, but he was gonna be dabbling back in between photo and video for some of his 3D animations, and I wanted to make sure we always had video rolling on the featured artist from the pit, and so we brought in Jar, and he did a great job, and I think he had like 4 or 5 clips that made the video, and they're huge. Like, we needed those clips, which was super valuable. Yeah, so that's why this one is different. There was just more people, and there was more hype, and there was a lot of content to shoot. Like, typically you're only focusing on your main talent. We had 10 people that needed coverage, so that in itself just allows you to document a lot more here. And then the last thing that made this one different was that there was like a deep-rooted story in Chainsmoker history at Lollapalooza and at this festival. They had dropped Roses 4 years prior in 2015, and actually the video shows the story. If you haven't seen it, it's on my Instagram. Go check it out, and we'll link it down below. But they tell the story of like how they played Roses for the first time at Lollapalooza, and the video I don't think does the story as much justice as I want it to be. It's like 20% off. But basically, the festival closed down and it got rained on everyone. They opened it back up and they moved the Chainsmokers to like the golden time slot, which the video kind of articulates that. but you gotta like paint the picture. Like nobody I interviewed really like dove into like, the festival just opened, everyone's soaking wet and wants to rage, and there's no music playing, and you're just gonna probably go to whatever stage has music playing. Chainsmokers were there, you don't know of them, but it doesn't matter because they're the only thing playing, probably, and they're just going super hard, and it was just the most crazy footage. I think Rory's footage from that show was better than some of the footage we captured this year with the main stage and all the production. So it was a crazy story, and I felt very privileged to be able to tell that story, coming full circle with now Chainsmokers headlining this festival that they were scrappy artists at 4 years ago. So going into this whole event, we had the mandatory rehearsal that everybody had to be at, and it was after the rehearsal that I was like, oh, we should like really process this through. Like there's a lot of featured artists, there's a lot of moving parts. I think the guest list was like 80 people. Like typically you would have like 10 people backstage with you. There was 80 with everybody's artists and crews and stuff. And so I was like, we should really think this through. I asked one of Chainsmokers' team members who puts together a document of all the remixes of whatever the current track is that's out. And me and Spencer just listened to them. And our gut is always to go towards something heavy. And I wanted to kind of hit all kind of vibes. And so we hit this kind of mellow vibe for when the story's being told. And then we hit like this kind of really intense build-up moment. And then we kind of hit this nostalgic vibe at the end. So we used 3 different remixes, and I normally don't have the remix dialed beforehand, just because I know Chainsmokers have so much remixes and so much great content and music that it's not gonna be hard. If it was a smaller artist, I probably would. But this one, we did know it, and I basically had the whole video in my head driving to the event. Like I was driving and I was just like spitballing to Spencer. I was like, what if we did this? What if we did this? And then what if we got a shot of every featured artist getting ready? And then we interviewed these people that could tell the story a little bit. And so then we had an hour before the show, and we just had to execute all these, okay, I need to interview this person. You run over there, and then they would be busy, and you're like, all right, well, let me go to the next person. And it was a lot of managers and trying to coordinate with people, and it made that post-production process a lot harder, having known the full edit in my head, which I never really ran into before, but I was like editing it, and I was like, oh, I want this video to be done. Like I don't want to put in the work because I already know what it's gonna look like, and this isn't like entertaining for me to see it come to life. So we're gonna jump into this edit right now, and the first thing you're gonna see is a 360 clip, and I know I said I used 3 remixes here, but I also had the vocal stem of Takeaway, which is the first soundtrack that you hear, and it's like this vocal chop. And I've heard that like a month ago, and I was like, I will make an edit to this. And when we needed a little intro sequence, I thought this was perfect. Knowing Spencer could make 3D animations, I was like, okay, there is something here with the crazy intro where we move from 360 footage, from like Tiny Planet 360 footage down to the ground, to regular footage, to 3D animations, down to the ground, to 3D animations. And I was like, I had Spencer come over, and we were like, okay, what do we do? And then I was like, I just want it to be like a crazy 6 seconds, 7 seconds. And we mapped it out, and I like made the 360 clips, and I told him, I was like, okay, I want you to punch in here, punch in there. When we made it, it was about like 15 seconds, this intro sequence that you see with like the 360 footage mixed with 3D. And then, which is cool, and we worked really hard at it, and you're like, I'm glad this is taking more time up in our edit, but I thought it was so much cooler if we just cut it down to 6 seconds, and it would kind of blow minds, and it would kind of make people think back or want to watch it back and say like, how did they do this? And that's like what you're going for in a lot of these videos, is blowing people's minds on social media and saying like, how did they edit this? So we'll run through this. It goes from 360 footage into a regular clip, 3D animation, and then back into 360. After that, it's all my shots that I shot on the AR3 actually that day. The first clip that you see with my logo on it, that's another 360 clip. And I'm so glad I had this 360 crazy extension pole for this 360. This is like trade secrets right now. I can't believe I'm literally telling this. This is so like, I literally just started doing this, and it's like game changing, and everybody's going to be doing this in the music industry, and I'm already sharing it here, which is against everything I stand for. Not really. Happy to share it. I have this crazy long extension pole that's like 9 feet long, and I put this 360 camera on it, and it's cool for like getting the distance away from you, but it was so practical on this shoot because Chainsmokers stage had like this 10-foot like stage that lifted up, that elevated up. Basically, there's no way to film them when they're up there, and so I was able to use this 360 camera on top of it to get this super wide view of talent whenever they were up there. So Drew and Len and Stella both ended up on both of those platforms. And so this first shot that you see, there's like this really cool movement, and it's me just pushing the 360 camera up to get above Drew's head. And I think it just hits super hard, and it's like a very unique angle. All those photos were Danilo's, and I just downloaded every shot he took and sped it up. Spencer Miller with this 3D animation, always sick.
You just come back from Europe? We were in Europe busting our ass.
Why I said it was like a little bit boring to me is because I just took the interview footage or the interviews, and then I put just visuals to what they were saying. And so it's not like crazy creative work, but it was more taxing in the moment to capture those. Like I was stressing before the show to get these interviews, because if I didn't get them then, I was never going to get them, and we wouldn't have this cohesive piece. And it really only works if you have the full story. And so I was really stressed before the show. Normally I'm kind of like a little bit more relaxed. Stressed before, come to post-production, I'm normally really stressed. And this one, it was just like underwhelming, because I was like, okay, let's just put visuals to what they're saying. This video was shot by Rory, old school Europe video, super sick. I just ripped this news footage off YouTube. Probably not the most legal thing, but I did it. So this interview with Drew is actually walking up to stage. He was the last person I needed to interview, and I was like, all right, here it is. Like, this is the only chance I have to interview him. And we've got that relationship where I'm able to do that. Now, if you don't have that relationship with your artist, be strategic and find other moments. And you might be wrong, like it might be a bad moment, and as long as you give yourself time, then you can pepper like a couple more opportunities. Like, hey, can I just get this quick soundbite from you, or can you just tell me about Lollapalooza 4 years ago? That's what I would just tell them. Like, tell me about 4 years ago, and everybody basically knew what I was getting at, because that was like the big storytelling piece here. And I knew in the moment when I was recording Drew and he was like talking about roses and he did like the little click, I was like, right then I was like, I'm just gonna cut back to the old shot. Which I think is the most insane shot ever. Like Rory came over to my house and dropped this footage off, and I was like, this is so much cooler than the roses drop that happened this year. I was like, originally I was gonna show the contrast from 4 years ago to this year, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot, and everybody's gonna be like, this is way less cool. So I basically put the visuals again over on top of all the journey of the artist. I forgot Sick Boy though. I had it downloaded, but I forgot to put the Sick Boy visual on. So story arc wise, it's past, present, future, right? It's like what happened 4 years ago, what's happening, what's happened since then, like from the past to the future. I thought that was a cool moment. Typically it's past, present, future. Like, where are we now? You already know where we're at. So I had Rory kind of tell like everything that's happened in between then. And I think it's important to ask not the artist in this moment, because you don't want to frame up your artist as bragging, no matter how big they are or how small they are. It's so much cooler if their friends just like, I knew this kid when he was in college, and now he's played for like 15 countries and all these famous people or whatever. Like, it's so much cooler coming from a friend versus the actual artist. And the artist probably will give it to you, but I think it's up to you. It's part of your job to help build this person's brand. So that's what we did, and Roy crushed it. He mentioned, he's like, now we got all the features, which again was just so perfect to then go into the sequence where you see every feature, where I just pulled them away kind of for their solo shots. And I'm really bummed because you can see some of the artists that I didn't get their solo shots on, because they're not as swaggy as some of them. But this first one with BB is super sick. Using this TOBK Twitch and then a new graphic kind of glitch that you're seeing in the foreground and like the side frames and the shadows that I might be releasing eventually. I don't think it's as cool as a TOBK Twitch, but it's dope, and I think people are going to want it. so many people go straight into like a drop or an edit and just like a crazy vibe, or they just let the song play. And it's like anything you can do to bring like multimedia, like other medias into it. So like this soundbite of Drew saying like last time we played this was over there. That's so important to pepper in throughout the whole entire video, because people just watching a recap playing to a track is like, it's exhausting. People got like 20, 30 seconds to watch that at best. And I also think it's very important to not directly go straight into a drop or use a traditional build that's like, and then it like drops into the drop, because it's so predictable. Everybody knows what a buildup is and a drop is. And so if you're scrolling on Instagram or you're scrolling on YouTube and you hear a buildup, you're like, I already know where this is going, and you move on. Where if you have kind of like just like the beginning of a song, or you can create an intro or an outro, like everybody's gotten so good at editing to buildups and drops that like that's the standard anymore. Like you're not creative, you're not good. Challenge yourself. Go do the outro, go do the intro, use the outro as your intro, and then cut to a funny clip, and then don't use the build-up and just go straight to the drop. Like restructure the whole format that everybody's used now as a template for the last 2 years. That's what we do here. There's a little bit of a build-up that's cliche, I think, in my mind, but it's so intense and it's so repetitive, and it's like very like kind of got this like trance vibe that I thought really hit it like well, and it's kind of like heavier and darker. Kind of hit the mood of like the intenseness of everything. Spencer Miller did this whole build-up part. I think he crushed it, and I think you can obviously see which parts he did with his style. If you know Spencer Miller, it's very Spencer Miller-esque. So like right before the drop, we zoom out into a photo and kind of like cut the music. And I think that's important too, because it's like the build-up was predictable and the drop's gonna be predictable. And so we like cutting, snapping out. What I just said was like stopping, playing a funny raw clip, and then going straight into the drop. It's like that is kind of the format here, but it goes into like a raw moment that shows you the full scale of this show. From like the most wide perspective that we got that entire day, which was only shot from a photo. And then it takes you straight into a drop. And it's a more nostalgic drop than like the heavy version. And basically we kind of just make sure to feature every artist and pepper some 360 footage in there, make sure Chainsmokers get their screen time. But we kind of want to just make sure every person has their face shown. So again, it's a little boring because you just know, I just need to get a couple of clips of this person. It might not be the best, but it's more about the documentation of it, which kind of was frustrating for me in the editing process, because I was like, I just need to find the best clip of this person. It's not even about finding the best clip. Something that I also added at the end is I just looped the last hit of the song, and then I'd change like the vocal or like the tone of the last vocal for the last hit. And it's just because we had extra cool shots that I wanted to use that wasn't necessarily, or like I didn't find a place that it made sense or there was context. So I just added this kind of like vibey section at the end where it just like repeated the same vocal cue, and I just thought it hit like a really, really cool tone. And I probably could have done like 10 of those, which I probably would have done, but also there was a deadline with this and we just had to get it out. So I'm glad I fit in 3 of those in there. I think it adds a lot. And it also makes the video seem unpredictable, right? Like, oh, it ended perfectly. It's like the outro was a little bit different than what you would predict. And I think that's very important because everything right now online is very predictable. So very predictable show. But we take an unpredictable approach by getting multiple people involved, outsourcing a lot of stuff. We had Jar out there. Spencer Miller was helping out, and he was doing a lot of extra media stuff. We did the 360 footage. I was shooting my butt off with it. We used some photos involved. We flashed back to old footage. We used media, like news coverage, and that's just not done in a typical music recap. So whatever you guys are shooting, look at it and say, like, what's typical, what's cool, go get inspired by what's been done, and then go take another format from another industry and see how can I get this like toilet paper commercial to make sense here? Is it cheesy? Is it weird? Do they have like a cartoon voiceover? Like, how does this make sense in what I'm doing? And really mix it up, because nobody, to be honest with you, is trying to mix it up, and it's frustrating for everyone. So thanks for watching, guys. This is the conclusion of season 2. This is a very vulnerable episode for me. I don't really show my process in the music industry like this, especially with this new camera that I'm using, this 360 camera. I'm gonna do a whole new tech review on this 360 camera because I think it is the coolest thing. I shoot 360 cameras for skydiving, for now the music industry, and I'm using it in a commercial here coming up. And I think you guys are gonna really wanna use this and integrate it into a lot of your productions. But again, thanks for watching. I've always said to comment on these. I want to engage with you guys. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you're doing that. And if you want to share these to your friends, like, that would be the biggest honor of everything, because sharing is the best way for these things to be seen. And I think there's a lot of people that would want to see something like this, because I haven't seen a YouTube channel that just sits here and breaks down their full process in the most casual, vulnerable space. So thank you guys, appreciate it. I'm only making these for you. And we will see you hopefully on the next season if you guys have suggestions. Hudson's out of a job!
I am fired.
Fired!